All week, people have been coming to me and being like, Kit, there's a Star Wars Squadrons. What do you think of Star Wars Squadrons? Kit, tell me what you think of Star Wars Squadrons. Guys, I don't know what makes you think that I'm going to have an opinion about Star Wars Squadrons. Is this purely subjective? Now, I know you're also thinking, Kit, purely subjective is a thing where you do reviews. It's not. Purely subjective is whatever I tell you it is, which, in this case, is me talking about Star Wars Squadrons. So, what do I think of Star Wars Squadrons? Well, Star Wars Squadrons is being hyped up as the big new Star Wars thing where you fly in the starfighters and you shoot down the other starfighters and it all looks really pretty and all looks really good and all seems great, and it does. It looks brilliant, and they're very deliberately harking back to a lot of TIE Fighter and X-Wing stuff, and it kind of confuses me why all these people who are doing the reviews of the trailers and stuff are going, oh, it's a really innovative thing how they're just putting all the HUD elements in the actual screen of the cockpit. That's not innovative, guys. That was X-Wing and TIE Fighter. If you don't know X-Wing and TIE Fighter and you think this is a brand new thing, watch my channel where I play a lot of X-Wing and a lot of TIE Fighter. Duh. So what do I think about it? I'm cautiously optimistic. There is a lot of good to look at. It looks really pretty. I'm a little bit concerned about the crossplay stuff because that's going to limit some things. Now, if we're just talking some basic stuff, it looks like it's trying to be X-Wing and TIE Fighter, but I'm a little bit worried about its multiplayer focus. It's got a single-player campaign, but everything that I've seen seems to be like, oh, it's got the single-player campaign, but that's just sort of to prep you for the fact that there's this big multiplayer component. It feels, looking at it like that, like they're doing the Battlefront 2 thing, where like there was a single-player campaign, but it was kind of light, and really what they were in it for was the multiplayer, especially because it's coming from EA. So there's gonna be some weird monetization stuff out there which I can see. I can see it coming. It's all gonna be in the cosmetics. And I'm not a big fan of that. I know they're saying that you can unlock all of the stuff in it, like the gameplay changes, by just playing it. And that's cool, but I'm sure there's going to be options to just give some money to get that stuff early. And I don't really like the idea of that stuff in this kind of Starfighter game. I would like instead just more options of ships to fly. This is a ramble. This is just a ramble. I was gonna write a script, but I figured no, it's cool, Kit. You can just go off the cuff. You can just talk because you've got opinions, and I do. Oh boy. What am I thinking? I'm thinking the multiplayer is going to be weird. TIE Fighters aren't going to act like TIE Fighters. X-Wings aren't properly going to act like X-Wings. Because they're doing this 5v5 dogfight thing, the idea of a TIE Fighter and, to a lesser extent, a TIE Interceptor was that they were disposable ships. And so you would just mass produce them and they would win by swarm tactics. And if you've played TIE Fighter, if you've played X-Wing, you know that. You fly a TIE Fighter and you feel like you're in just like a tin can with an engine strapped to it and a laser cannon underneath you. It's a terrifying experience, but it is so fun. And if you're flying an X-Wing, you're sturdy. You're not as fast and nimble, but you can bullseye those tires with no problems at all. And it's cool and it's fun, but I'm not sure how that's going to translate to a modern day multiplayer thing. There was X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and if they did something similar to that for the gameplay component, that could work, but they're not doing that. If they did it in a similar sort of way to Battlefront, where you had the stock or the 100 points or whatever, and if a TIE Fighter is worth 1 point but an X-Wing is worth 5 points, then you need to destroy 100 TIE Fighters to win if you're the Rebels, but you only need to destroy 20 X-Wings to win if you're the Imperials. Yeah, I can see that working, but the Rebels are still going to have that advantage because a TIE Fighter is just not as good as an X-Wing. It's just how it is. It's gonna be... Other things I'm concerned about the crossplay, Because on PC, you've got a keyboard with a lot of buttons you can press, so you can actually do all the stuff that you can do in TIE Fighter and X-Wing. You can set your shields front and your shields back, you can shuffle that energy around appropriately, and you can do my low-key favorite thing of just like, oh no, my shields are gone and I need to put some power into them, and just slam all of your energy from your lasers into your shields and just not shoot for a few seconds. I like that. That's great. I love that you can do that in X-Wing, and I love that you can do that in TIE Fighter. I don't think you're going to be able to do that in Starfighter Squadrons because there's just not enough input in an Xbox or PS4 controller to be able to do that, which means that by necessity the game is going to be not as deep and not as nuanced as X-Wing, as TIE Fighter, these games that came out nearly 30 years ago. They're as old as I am. This is a terrifying thought. The fewer inputs is not a massive issue. There's admittedly a few things that I don't use when I play X-Wing and when I play TIE Fighter, but there are things in that I know people would use. And I should use. Like, I should really use the button that I bound it to my thrust control so that I'd remember to press it, and I still never press it. I never press target nearest incoming warhead. I never do that. I should. It would make my life so much easier, but I don't, because I'm a fool. But these fewer inputs are going to impact the gameplay, because even just looking at the trailer, I saw them shifting shields forward and back, so that's going to be in there. I didn't see them ever changing the linking of their lasers, which I don't like. I really like being able to just set all four of my lasers and just be like, that's a TIE Fighter, that TIE Fighter's dead, that's a TIE Fighter, that TIE Fighter's dead. Or just then setting it to single fire for doing a strafing run down the side of a Star Destroyer. It was brilliant, and I don't think they're going to have that in the game. It's not going to be hugely missed, especially by people who haven't played it before. And, I mean, 30 years ago, so a lot of the people that are going to be picking this up and playing it haven't played that sort of thing. To them, this is going to be brand new, this is going to be amazing. But if you're watching this, and you are one of those people who's never played X-Wing and never played TIE Fighter, buddy, go to Good Old Games, go download X-Wing, download TIE Fighter. You can get all games in that series and the remastered versions. I say remastered, they're remastered in 1998, so it's still not going to look good by today's standards. You can get all those for like $20, $30, then get yourself a joystick. Get yourself one of these. Get yourself one of these. Get yourself X-Wing, get yourself TIE Fighter, have some fun. Just, oh boy, it'll give you a heads up if you want to get into this game coming out and be really good at it and jump into the multiplayer and just destroy people and have people go, oh my god, how are you so good at this game? Just get X-Wing and TIE Fighter, because I'm fairly sure you're going to be able to use a thrust control joystick like this, and I'm fairly sure it's going to be quite similar. Get one of those and get yourself a leg up on the competition, but then I'm also a little bit worried that you're going to start playing Star Wars Squadrons and you're going to be sad at just how shallow it is by necessity of them having it on the consoles and the PC. I would love to see it as a PC exclusive, frankly. Sad as it is to say, I would love to see the version of it brought, or a version of it brought, to PS4 and Xbox, which was a bit more along the lines of Rogue Squadron, which everything I've seen of people online talking about this and be like, oh yeah, cool, I love the Rogue Squadron games. That's not what they're aping. They're not aping the Rogue Squadron games. They're aping X-Wing. They're aping TIE Fighter, which were more simulation games. They are flight sims with guns. This is a rambly thing, and I normally have some sort of script if I'm doing a purely subjective. But I have really complicated feelings about this. Initially, I was really just like, oh, that's really cool, and then I sat and I thought about it, and I went, oh no, it's just going to end up like Rogue Squadron, but with some nods to X-Wing and TIE Fighter with, oh, you've got a little bit more control over your ship. But then the more I looked at it, the more I realized that they are actually trying to do something like X-Wing and TIE Fighter, But then I looked into it some more and I went, oh, it's not gonna quite be there. I want X-Wing and TIE Fighter with modern day graphics. That's what I want. VR, modern day graphics. And it's coming, but it's not gonna be what I want. Even though it is, it's gonna be so close. It's gonna be so close, and I'm gonna play it so much. And you can bet your ass I'm going to build a new PC for this, because this old baby has, it is powered essentially by a potato or a single rat running in a cage. The motherboard is from 2007. This thing is on its last legs, and oh boy, I cannot wait to spend all of my money on just building a new PC with VR capability and just destroying this game in like a single sitting. And I will stream it if I can. I would love to do that. I would love to do all that. I'm worried that it's not going to be what we want and what they're promising, and I know that they're going to find some terrible, terrible monetization, and this is a horrible, horrible ramble, and I shouldn't upload this, but I'm going to upload it. Oh boy. Sorry for the shirt change, but I was editing everything together and I suddenly just had the and one more thing moment. So I've gone and I've taken screenshots of the gameplay trailer that we saw, and then screenshots of X-Wing, and I'm just going to compare the pair and talk about issues that I've got. So, real quick, let's have a look at this shot from the gameplay trailer. Now, it's flying an A-Wing, and we can look at all these and we can see that they have a set of scopes, or really they have a scope, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. They have their really small targeting screen here, which does show the distance, orientation, and health of the thing that you've got targeted. They have your speed and the amount of thrust that you've got. They've got the different things for your lasers and your engines. That's cool. They have 3 different things down here for, I assume these are those customizable things you can stack onto your ship. So it looks like that left one is some sort of a self-heal. That middle one is some sort of countermeasure to fire chaff out the back or something. And the one on the right is some kind of missile. And then on the right there we have our shield and health indicator of our own ship. And you can see the one at the top is a smaller line than the one at the back, so presumably he's lost more shields at the front than he has at the back. Okay, and then they have the single line of his laser power. Now, oh boy, okay, let's sort of break that down a little bit. For starters, I'm definitely correct with saying that they're only going to have just the basic sort of, oh, it's just your lasers and you're not going to be able to set them to fire both lasers at once, because instead of having laser power per laser, they've just got a single bar for your laser power, and you're not going to be able to overcharge them, and I'm kind of okay with that, because really I would almost always wait until I had fully charged lasers anyway, before I started trying to shoot things with underpowered lasers, because no one wants to shoot things with underpowered lasers. But they have the same deal with the missiles. They just have, you've got 8 missiles, rather than if we have a look over at this other screenshot from the original X-Wing, or really from the remaster of X-Wing, complete with my terrible face. You can see that they have the 1 and the 2 there. That means I've got 1 missile in my left missile pod and 2 missiles in my right missile pod. So that's some slight differences. If you've never seen what X-Wing looks like, oh boy, this has got to be a shock to you for just all the pixels. Now, the differences you can see here are kind of myriad. You've got laser power for your left and right laser cannon. You've got your own hull strength. You've got this much larger, much easier to read tactical screen showing you what it is that you've got targeted. If you've actually damaged your enemy, it will tell you how damaged they are. It gives them an okay status. In this case, saying that the ship is not damaged at all. It's not ionized, nothing like that. And it also shows the distance. Now, the newer one does have the distance, but it is just in this tiny, tiny font that's going to be kind of difficult to read just on the fly as you're trying to whip around in a dogfight. I actually have to point that out as just a general thing, because you may not know this. I'm a graphic designer, and so I'm looking at this going, you got some issues with the typeface that you've chosen. So if there's people watching this who make the game, if you're people from EA, pay attention, because I'm gonna learn you a thing. Use readable typefaces. It's very cool, it's very pretty, but it needs to be something that you can read at a glance. Uh, it looks nice, it's very aesthetically pleasing, but it needs to either be larger or be thinner, or in some cases both. And in the case of this distance counter, that distance counter is really important, or at least it was in X-Wing, and it was in TIE Fighter, and it was in X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and it is in X-Wing Alliance, so I assume that it's going to be kind of necessary now, especially considering what you've done to the scopes. So that needs to be larger. It also looks a bit blurry, maybe because it's a light red against a dark red background, which is also just a weird, bad idea. But regardless of that, it's fine. At least the information is there, okay? But the information is there and much cleaner and much more accessible in X-Wing, a game from, 1993? 1991? I'm not even sure exactly how old this game is. I need to check my notes. It's about as old as I am. And much more legible, much more readable than this new one. But that's fine. That's fine. Let's look at the other thing that I have a huge, enormous problem with. If you've seen the very first purely subjective video that I ever did, go back and watch it. It's got me in it, so it's not that great. But it compares X-Wing to the starfighter combat in Battlefront. Admittedly, Battlefront... I said Battlefront 1. Battlefront 2015. It was 2015, right? Either way, the problem I had with that was they had the same sort of radar that they had in the ground-based combat, and it was a 2D thing. It would be in front of you, behind you, left and right, but you didn't have a spatial awareness sense of up and down. They've kind of fixed this with Star Wars Squadrons. If you have a look here, you've got this... it's a scope. It's a scope, is what it is. Down here on the left, it's also got a targeting reticle in it, and I kind of like that idea, because there's no crosshair apparent on the actual screen. So you would use this to actually target your enemy as well. You make sure they're in the middle of that crosshair. It's not as precise as just having a crosshair on the screen. Just go ahead and put a crosshair on the screen, like holograms are a thing. It's fine, you can do that. But if you notice, if you watch any of these gameplay trailers, and I'm just using this screenshot as an example because I can't be bothered to go and rip the whole video down, but it'll show directly in front of you, up, down, left, and right, and then it has this outer ring, which is stuff which is outside of that range. I'm kind of assuming that the stuff which is outside of that range is, like, from 180 degrees to each side of you and then behind. Okay, useful, but if the stuff is in front of you, then you can see it anyway, because you've given us this really wide open cockpit. So you're going to be able to see them anyway. So why do you only have a front scope? What's the idea behind this? And it's also much smaller than the front scope, or any of the scopes really, on X-Wing and TIE Fighter and X-Wing Alliance. And when I say any of the scopes, hey, if you're not aware of X-Wing or TIE Fighter, let's have a look over at this old school screenshot. Look at those scopes. Left side, right side, you got F for front, R for rear. Very, very simple. If it's in front of you and it's in the middle of your screen, it's going to be on that left scope in the dead center of your screen. And dots are red for Imperials, green for Rebels, white for neutral stuff, and blue for neutral stuff as well, weirdly, and orange or yellow for missiles. Very, very simple, very easy to read. And then you can see here, I've got a ship targeted, which is behind me, so it's on the right-hand screen, so it's got a big box around it, say this is a ship you got targeted. You've got the targeting screen, it says it is 11 kilometers away. Cool! I know I'm not in any danger from that ship. If you had a ship targeted in Star Wars Squadrons, and it's not in front of you, you're not entirely sure whereabouts it is, just that it's not in front of you, and if you then squint, you'll be able to see roughly how far away it is. I've got issues with this. I don't like that there's only one piddly little scope, and it's really small, and it's also cluttered with a bunch of other stuff instead of just being the flat circle to just give you all this information. It's too cluttered. They've put a bit too much emphasis onto things looking nice and isn't it so aesthetic and cool? I hope they change things to make it not more visually appealing but more easily readable. They need like a UI designer, which I assume they've got several of, to just go through and be like, hey, in the middle of combat, I'm not going to be able to immediately glance at that and know what's going on. They need to fix it. Frankly, I'm not entirely excited about this anymore. I got really hyped yesterday when I recorded that video, and now I'm just angry. Why have they taken my scopes away? If you're flying a TIE fighter, which you're gonna fly a TIE fighter in this, for starters, the entire screen, if you look at the trailer, the entire screen flying a TIE fighter is black, aside from this circle in the middle where you've got your viewport. Frankly, if you look at Star Wars, the guy will sit really quite close to that, so you can see pretty much everything out of that viewport, and it doesn't really matter because a TIE fighter pilot is only going to be looking up from if they're in a dogfight, they're only going to be looking up from their instruments to make sure the ship is in front of them so they can shoot it. It's a TIE fighter. You fly using your instruments. You don't fly looking around. So, okay, maybe it's a tiny thing, but you've taken away half the instruments. Where's my rear scopes? I need to know what's behind me if I'm in a TIE fighter. There's no window back there. What's going on? So anyway, this has been my horrible, horrible, rambly thoughts on everything that's come out so far about Star Wars Squadrons. I hope you enjoyed. I normally don't do this whole thing, but I mean, do the like button thing somewhere down here, and there's like a subscribe button, and apparently there's a bell. I never do that stuff. But hey, look, if you've come here and you've seen this and been like, oh, you play this sort of game? Yeah. Watch the other stuff I've done on my channel. I play through all of X-Wing. I've played through all of TIE Fighter. I'm going through X-Wing Alliance now, which is... it's good. It's not as good as TIE Fighter. Oh boy, am I going to compare X-Wing, Star Wars Squadrons to TIE Fighter. And I don't know how well it's going to hold up. But yeah, no, like, jump into the channel, look at all the stuff. I'm not particularly upbeat and entertaining. I like to aim things to be really quite chill. But yeah, so I'm Kit, greatest starfighter pilot in the galaxy, and this is purely subjective. Cheers, guys.